Shout for, I'd say, on this lap is the number 51 car of Carl Cavers, because Carl was quick in free practice yesterday and has gone through the first sector of this lap quicker than anybody has gone so far at the moment. He's actually now up to second quickest overall, Carl Cavers, and on an even better lap this time through. But for Paul Hogarth, he'll be looking to try and slot the car right towards the top of the times in Coppa Shell. He's 14th at the moment, so he's only really completed an out lap, but will look to try and make sure that he is on a flyer this time through. Should get the first sector as they head part the way down the Wellington Straight, and needs to be around about 38 seconds, I would say, for Paul Hogarth, and he goes through that first sector at 38.7 seconds, so giving up a bit of time through the first sector. And then takes a very wide line through Luffield, so it gives up a little bit more time there, I would have thought, so he may well have already backed out of the lap potentially. Still plenty of time, we've still got 13 minutes of this qualifying session still to go. Through the right-hander at Copps, and then back on the throttle as soon as you possibly can, and then up towards the fantastic section of corners, Maggots and Beckett's, where the car just moves from left to right to left to right as you head through this complex. Really feeling the lateral G-force as well in these cars. And then again, critical corner coming out of Beckett's, on the throttle nice and early, plant your foot on the accelerator, shift up through the gears, be careful not to run wide through the left-hand kink at Chapel, and then all the way down the Hanger Straight up towards Stowe Corner. But it doesn't look as though at the moment the lap is quite coming together for Paul Hogarth. Not slow through either sector by any stretch of the imagination, but is it going to get him to the top of the Coppa Shell standings at the moment, for which he would need to beat 2 minutes 6.363, which is the fastest Coppa Shell car we've had so far, and that's Paul Simerson, who is now 4th quickest. He was top of the times, wasn't he, not so long ago? Well, Paul Simerson is now 4th quickest, but still upholding top honours in Coppa Shell. Paul Hogarth comes over the start-finish line and goes 3rd quickest in Coppa Shell, 2 minutes 6.796 from him. So that moves him to 7th quickest overall. Top of the times, Carl Cavers, 2 minutes 4.224. As William Terrier now heads in towards the braking area for the left-hander at Brooklands. Now, William Terrier has had a bit of misfortune throughout the Brands Hatch weekend. He's hoping to try and put that behind him and build towards a quick time this time through. He's done, what, 4 flying laps so far, of which the last was his quickest, 2 minutes 9.796. Carl Cavers, who's just set the provisional pole time, moves out of his way to let the car on a flying lap go through. Uses all of the curbs, but no more on the exit of Copps Corner. And then in towards Maggots, which is the left-hand kink, then through Beckett's, where you turn right and turn left and turn right again. And again, the sector times from William Terrier through the first sector of this lap, quicker than he's previously gone, so that's a good thing. Still giving up a little bit of time to others in Coppa Shell. He's about to break the beam on the second sector, which is far, far longer. It takes about 37, 38 seconds to go through the first sector, but the second sector of the lap is over a minute. And again, through the second sector, he's gone quicker than he's previously gone, so it's highly likely to be an improved time, and William Terrier only needs to improve by 0.2 of a second to improve his position. He's currently 9th quickest in Coppa Shell, 15th quickest overall at the wheel of the number 23 car, representing Greypool, and that's a spin it off for the former rallyman Peter Hunter. So just gathers the moment up, we'll get the car pointing back round in the right direction, and we'll continue. So no harm done as such for Peter Hunter, who is 16th quickest of the 17 cars that we've seen out there at the moment. So harmless spin from him. He will get back on track and head around to clean up those Pirelli tyres with 9 3/4 minutes to go, and see what he might be able to do to try and hoist himself up from 10th of the Coppa Shell entrance and 16th quickest overall. Faisal Al-Faisal has been inside the top 6 in terms of race position on 4 separate occasions so far this year. One of those also being at Brands Hatch last time out. Number 76 car for the moment, though, has not set a lap time, so he's on an out lap at the moment. He's done a couple of laps so far. So he moves out of the way and allows Andrew Morrow to go through, who is the championship leader overall in Trofeo Pirelli. 3 race wins for the Irishman, who brought this car up the hill at Goodwood at the Festival of Speed not so long ago. And Andrew Morrow, through the first and the second sector, has gone a little bit slower at the wheel of the Charles Hurst car than he's previously gone. So he heads down pit lane, and with 8 minutes to go, he's got time to probably have a small tweak to the tyre pressures perhaps on the car. Quick chat to the team and the engineers and his pro driver, and then head back out for a further roll of the dice. You can see a few cars sitting there in the pit lane. Paul Simerson is one. Looks as though Jonathan Satchel is another. But Elliot Pickering is out there and looking to see if he can build on what is 8th place overall at the moment at the wheel of the number 37 car. Elliot Pickering last time through set his best lap of the qualifying session so far, 2 minutes 6.695. That puts him 8th overall, 6th of the Trofeo Pirelli cars. And this time through, Elliot Pickering slightly slower through both the first and the second sector, so slower that this time to build for a final push or two. So with 8 minutes to go, just under, over the start finish line goes Elliot Pickering. Nice and neat and tidy through the first couple of corners, heavy braking in towards Village, and then on towards the loop once more. So, get on the throttle. Could have used maybe a little bit more exit curb there, but flat out through the Kincard Aintree. And Elliot Pickering looking to try and go green in the first sector, which he's just about to come through now. Slightly slower through that first third of the lap than he's previously gone. Not by much, but need to push ever more to try and just make up a few tenths through the slightly longer middle sector of the lap. But again, no obvious signs that he's missed apexes. It looks nice and clean and tidy and under control at the moment as the speeds begin to build again as he comes round through Woodcut Corner over what was the old Grand Prix start finish line, the National Pits as it's called now, the National Straight, and then up towards daunting right-hander at Copps. Amazing how quick Copps Corner is, particularly in these cars, all of the aero that they generate as well. And then from there, slightly uphill before you then slightly come downhill again in towards Maggots and Beckett's. But are we going to see an improved time through the middle sector of the lap? Just looks as though Elliot Pickering might have eased off a little bit on this lap. Just doesn't look as though the car is absolutely on the ragged edge, but Elliot, I'm sure, will be trying as hard as he possibly can. It's such a shame we've not seen him for a full season this year. Hopefully he'll be back for a full season in 2024 in the Ferrari Challenge UK. What does the middle sector look like? Well, in answer to that, no, he did ease off through that middle sector. So I think it didn't quite come together, so backed off it in the middle sector of the lap, save the tyres a little bit, bring the temperatures down, and then either come into the pit lane for a quick chat to the mechanics and the team, or push on for one final couple of flying laps. So we'll shortly be heading towards 5 minutes to go. Cole Cavers still tops the times at the moment with a 2 minute 4.244. As I say, he was fastest in the free practice session yesterday. That was about a second quicker than anybody yesterday. Well, at the moment he's 7/10 of a second quicker than Andrew Morrow. Cole, who has not had a race win in the Ferrari Challenge UK, and that's an off and a spin for somebody. Can't quite catch the car. I can tell you that it's a Coppa Shell car because it's got the yellow windscreen header to it, and the car that is off, I'm afraid, is Chris Smith, who has got a couple of wheels in the gravel but will be able to dig the car out and continue without too much of a problem. He just needs to move from side to side now to try and clear that gravel out, and by the look of it, that was at the first corner. That was at Abbey where he had the off, so just ran wide at Abbey, and he's now on the run-off tarmac heading up towards Village and the Loop. Now John Dillon we haven't seen much of in this session so far, currently 5th quickest at the wheel of the number 61 car. John representing Greypool Nottingham, been racing Ferraris on and off for a good number of years, and looking as though the first sector of this lap could be a good one. So John Dillon is currently 5th quickest, 2 minutes 6.183 from John Dillon. Need to improve by about a quarter of a second if he wanted to gain a place. As he comes out of the final corner, you can see the car there was using all of the curbs. 4 minutes to go. Back over the start finish line goes John Dillon. Don't think that's going to be an improvement for him, so that will keep him 4th of the Trofeo Pirelli cars and 7th quickest overall. Carl Cavers is still quickest, Andrew Morrow is 2nd, Hans Sickens is 3rd, Paul Hogarth is 4th, but the fastest of the Coppa Shell cars at the moment. And this car here, John Dillon, is next up in 5th position. Now what does the first sector look like? Makes his way out of Aintree Corner and along the Wellington Straight. Needs to be sort of low 38s really through the first sector, John Dillon. And he's a 38.195, so that's not quite as quick as he's previously gone, but that's not too bad at all through the first sector of the lap. Big long second sector though, of which he needs to be around about 62 seconds through the middle sector of the lap. The circuit broken into 3 separate sectors. The first sector brings them from the start-finish line through Abbey and Farm in towards the braking area for Village and the Loop and until part way along the Wellington Straight. The second sector brings them through Brooklands and Luffield, down the National Straight through this corner here, which is the right-hander at Copps, and through the Maggots and Beckett's complex, and it's part the way down the Hanger Straight, almost underneath the vehicle bridge down the Hanger Straight, which is sector 2, and then sector 3 brings them from that point through Stowe down in towards the Club and back to the start finish line, and that's the 3rd and final sector. Well, John Dillon's slightly slower, but not by much through the first sector. Again, you could just see he's harrying the 488 Evo, pushing hard at the wheel of the 670 brake horsepower car. What does the second sector look like for John Dillon? It's a 1 minute 1.989, so again slightly slower than he's previously gone, so he's given up a little bit of time through both the first and the second sector, so he'll really need to hook the third sector together if he wants to try and post an improvement. And even if he improves by just a couple of tenths, it's not going to be enough to improve his position on the grid at the moment. It is just over a quarter of a second he would need to improve the time by to gain a place on the grid. With 2 minutes remaining, again you can see the tail end of the car just moving around on him, and as he comes over the start finish line, that's about 6/10 of a second slower than he's previously gone, so no improvement there for John Dillon. Now, Peter Hunter is slowest of the cars that we've got out there at the moment, and he did have that small little harmless spin onto the grass, so he's looking to try and gather some further momentum. The first sector of this lap he has gone slightly slower than he has previously gone, and he is, I think, going to struggle to get over the start finish line before the clock ticks to 0. Might just squeeze in one further lap after this one actually, so it's not the final roll of the dice. I think this is the penultimate lap that he'll be on with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. Might just make it over the start finish line before the clock ticks to 0, and again he will look to see what he might be able to do. A driver with not a great deal of circuit racing experience, but has really come on this year as Peter Hunter, and is lying 7th in the Coppa Shell standings coming into this weekend with 23 championship points to his tally. The first sector was slightly slower than he's previously got. What does the second sector look like as he heads towards the conclusion of that? Again, that's slightly slower than he's previously gone, so I'm not sure we are going to see an improved time for Peter Hunter, and even if he improves his time, he would need to find a reasonable significant improvement, so he needs to go nearly 9/10 of a second quicker to improve his position on the grid. So some of the cars are already being pushed back into the garages as though their sessions have been curtailed now, and they are done with. Peter Hunter came over the start finish line and was about 1.2 seconds slower than he had previously gone, but he did get over the start finish line before the checkered flag fell, so there's still time on the clock. So anybody coming over the start finish line now can still chalk a further lap in, so the likes of Julian Dye, who's still out there on circuit, can squeeze a further lap out, as can Faisal Al Faisal, who is 7th of the Trofeo Pirelli cars at the moment and 11th quickest overall. So Faisal Al Faisal could have squeezed another flying lap out, but he's eased things off by the look of things, so it looks as though at best then Faisal will line up just outside of the top 10 in 11th position at the wheel of the number 76 car representing HR Owen. So checkered flag is out. Cavers looking as though he could well be on course for his second pole position of the season. He secured pole in round 4 of the championship, which was the second of the 2 races at Alton Park, but Carl Cavers, I think, is probably safe with pole in this one, because the only car that's still circulating that could mount a challenge for that is Paul Hogarth, who is in 4th, and he's really eased things off through the first sector, so it looks like all is good for Carl Cavers for his second pole of the 2023 championship season. For Peter Hunter, he didn't improved last time through. There's Stuart Marsden. Stuart with a different livery on the car for this weekend, not his regular car, so he's stepped over to drive this one this weekend. And Stuart Marsden is 6th quickest of the Coppa Shell cars and 13th quickest overall currently. There's still some cars that are on flying laps at the moment, not of least of which is the car of, I think, John Dillon on a flying lap. Likes the blaze also for Paul Hogarth, who is, I don't think, going to improve because he was much, much slower through first and second sector. So I think a few of the drivers now just easing things off. And diving for the pit lane goes Stuart Marsden, so he will not conclude the lap. So at best, he then is going to line up 13th on the grid. And then I think we'll see probably John Dillon and Paul Hogarth and Peter Hunter all trickle their way into the pit lane as well to conclude the qualifying session for round 7 of the 2023 Ferrari Challenge UK. So yep, into the pit lane comes John Dillon, into the pit lane comes Paul Hogarth, and do we see into the pit lane Peter Hunter as well? We'll have to wait and see. So there's a few more cars just working their way around. That's Paul Simerson, who is just part the way around the lap, but it looks as though, with everybody having taken the checkered flag, the way that they're going to line up for round 7 of the championships. Carl Cavers qualified on pole position. Andrew Morrow, the championship leader, was 2nd quickest. 3rd was Hans Sickins, and 4th was the quickest of the Coppa Shell cars, which was Paul Hogarth. John Dillon was there in 5th place, ahead of Paul Simerson, who was 6th. Chris Smith was 7th. Then it was Graham DeZille, the Brands Hatch winner, down in 8th place. He was feeling a little bit off colour yesterday. Hopefully he's feeling slightly better today. Elliot Pickering was 9th, and Paul Rogers completes the top 10. Then as we head outside of the top 10, in 11th place, it was Faisal Al Faisal, ahead of Robert Reitz, who was 12th place. Stuart Marsden 13th, Jonathan Satchel 14th, and it was William Terrier, Julian Dye, and Peter Hunter that wrapped up the qualifying session. And that's the way that they should line up for our race later on today for round 7 of the Ferrari Challenge UK here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit. So the car's being pushed back into the pits. So whilst the cars are being pushed back into their garages to be tinkered with in advance of the race, let's look back at some of the highlights from the qualifying session that we've just seen.